Right. The next big part of that legal requirement element is the taxation compliance. So, taxation is a means by which the government actually gets finances for expenditure. So, it collects money from individuals and businesses. So, taxes are imposed generally, like an example of this is on income or capital gains, or like GST, which is on goods and services. So, when we buy products at the store, many of them, if not most, will have GST as a component. So that's a goods and services tax that goes to the government. So many different taxes apply to different businesses. And if you start a business, it's really important to understand what tax regulations will apply to your business. So some of the main taxes that affect businesses are imposed by the federal and state governments, and they're in the table that we've got below. So the ATO is the Australian Taxation Office. So shorthand is ATO. It's the government body that is in charge of administering and collecting tax for the federal government. So the federal government being the Australian government. A business owner establishing a partnership or company needs to obtain a tax file number, so a TFN, for the business. Most of you will actually have your own personal tax file numbers as well, or will be looking to get one of those so that you can operate in the workforce. So, this is if you have a partnership or a company, you'll need a tax file number. It's a unique number that comes from the ATO to either an individual, which you would have, or an organisation, so that it can help with managing tax and other government services. It can be acquired, so you can get one at the same time that you actually get your ABN, your Australian business number. If you're a sole trader, you just use your personal tax file number when you're dealing with the ATO. So, say you were going to open your own business and you're going to operate it as a sole trader, you're going to use your personal tax file number. You don't need to get one for your business if you're a sole trader. So, income tax. So, we've got this personal tax table here. This is the personal tax rates from 2021 to 2022 that we are looking at. So, federal income tax is levied on a taxable income of an individual or a business. So it's calculated differently for individuals and companies. Companies pay a flat rate of tax of 30% for larger businesses, or 25% for businesses that have a turnover that's less than $50 million. Individuals, on the other hand, pay on a progressive tax rate, okay, which is this below. So the way to explain this is that if you earn $0 to $18,200, you would pay no tax on your income. Your income from $18,000, so $18,201 to $37,000, you would pay 19 cents for every dollar that is over that $18,200. Then in the next bracket, okay, if you're from $37,001 to $90,000, you're going to pay a flat rate of $3,572. Plus, then you're then also going to pay 32.5 cents for every dollar that is over that $37. And can you see we then move through the scale? So depending on where you sit is how much tax you're going to pay on that income. So other federal and state taxes, there are many other federal and state taxes that apply to businesses depending on what you do. So as a business owner, you might need to register for pay-as-you-go withholding, so PYG, goods and services tax, so GST, and fringe benefits tax, so FBT. Yeah, FBT. So pay as you go, it is taken from your employee's salary or wage directly, and it's imposed on the employee. So if you've seen a pay slip, you would see that you've got pay as you go withholding potentially on there. So it's taken out of your salary or your wage to go to the government. Um, a goods and services tax. So it's a broad-based tax of 10% that is on the supply of most goods and services in Australia. It's on all imposed on all consumers. So when you buy goods, um, those goods have GST on them. Businesses are only required to register for GST if they earn $75,000 or more in a financial year. A fringe benefits tax. So tax on the provision of a benefit to an employee. So if you have a car for private use, low interest rate loan, something in place of a wage or salary, and it's imposed on the employer. Other major state taxes, so these are state taxes that apply to businesses, are something like stamp duty. So placed on documents that give evidence to transactions such as purchase of a property, and they're imposed on an individual or a business. And land tax, so annually levied on the owner of the land. Business activity statement. So this is your BAS statement. Many people would have heard that term thrown around. So any business that is actually registered for GST, remember you're registering for GST if you are earning more than $75,000 in a financial year. You must complete a business activity statement, so a BAS statement. It's a form that is submitted to the ATO to report your tax obligations. So you can remit tax due on income earned during the period, as well as any goods and services an employee pay as you go withholding obligations. It's lodged periodically with the ATO. All right. Next up, we've got your local government legal requirements. So these up here have all been like a tax compliance. So generally more of that federal or state that we've been talking about. This is more of your local government. So this would apply to shires and things like that. Sorry, I just have to keep pausing the video. So we're now talking about local government legal requirements. So this is like your local government approval. Many of these things relate to like land zoning. What can you use your building for? What can you use your land for how can you develop the land that you have? What different ways can you alter your premises? Have you got fire regulations that you need to comply with, parking regulations, health regulations, or even your signage? So to put up new signage, you often have to get permits from the local government. Whilst they take time and money and effort, failure to do these can again cost you time in operation. So you could be forced to close your business, you could be forced to redo signage and pay all of that out of your own pocket. So getting these right is important. Two important local laws or bylaws relate to zoning and health services. So what can you actually do in the location you're at? So you have to be really careful that you are operating the right business in the right location, which comes down to a local government legal requirement. So zoning regulations. So you have to be careful that business activities don't infringe on residential areas. So it's not a free for all. You can't just choose to operate a business out of a home because you think it's a good idea. Council does have specific planning that happens in the background that you need to comply with. So land is zoned for particular uses like residential, industrial, business, or other. So when you commence a business, you have to consult with the local council to find out what zoning is actually impacting on the business and into the future. So manufacturing business that uses heavy equipment and wants to operate for a 24-hour shift has to be located where zoning regulations would allow that. If you're actually operating in a residential area, it is very unlikely that that is going to be permitted. And you could, run into some challenges with that. So it's important to check where your business location is zoned. The other one is health services. So especially health regulations under the Food Act of 1984. So each local council supplies businesses, especially those like cafes or restaurants, um, with the regulations and standards that they have to meet to obtain a license to operate. So you can't just go, I'm going to start baking out of my kitchen and selling food. You are going to have to make sure that you are meeting any legal requirements that sit in the background of that. So a health officer will inspect your premises regularly, generally without warning, and ensure that you are maintaining appropriate standards. If anything happens, you might be given a period of time to actually rectify the situation, or you may be forced to close down if you don't meet the requirements in a period of time. Um, local councils may also register and inspect other premises like accommodation and hairdressers to make sure they're actually meeting hygiene and safety requirements. So again, this is a local government regulation. So you would need to look into what applies in your local area. So, back to the key ideas. A business must ensure it's familiar with all of the various legal requirements that may affect it, as failing to do so can have serious consequences for the business and its owners. A business must legally register a business name and domain name and comply with tax regulations. And a business must comply with local government regulations. So, you need to be aware of these and how they're going to impact them. I want you to really focus on when you're completing these questions understanding the broad brushstroke definition of these and then how it would apply specifically to a business. All right, you've got your questions to go on with, and then we'll have a look at 4.3.